Start when you're ready. Pretty much everybody just needs to sit down. So, whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear? Good afternoon, everybody. Please take a seat. The event will start momentarily. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you all for coming. My name is Dr. Yu-Cheng Wang, the Dean of the College. And I have to admit that, probably this is the most difficult moment of my job as Dean. However, I'm also pleased to see so many of you joining us here to say our last farewell to Dr. Jeff Weinland, who passed away on Wednesday, July the 6th. So thank you so much for being here to remember and celebrate the life of a great friend, colleague, innovator, entrepreneur, and a professor. Many of you knew Dr. Weinland as the Big Jeff. He was a great storyteller, recounting his years in real estate, his excitement over theme parks and attractions, sharing his love of technology and cutting-edge tools for teaching, learning, and living life. You will know that when every time you step into his office and see the big screen commando set up in his office. Jeff had many, many friends and professional contacts made over his 35 plus years in the hospitality industry. He was always willing and eager to share a name, a number, to help others make a connection when needed. He was a mentor who encouraged basically the best in everyone. I still remember from time to time when Jeff would stop by my office and sitting on the sofa and say, "How things are going? What can I do for you?" Jeff, you have done so much to the college and for me. As a teacher, he demanded the best of his students through his tough and incentive teaching, supporting dreams of entrepreneurship during advising sessions, and in recent years with the sponsorship of the Rosen College Entrepreneurship Competition for our students. In life in general, Jeff was a good man with great intentions towards his colleagues, his students, and his friends. We will miss you, Jeff, walking through the halls or sitting at his desk, wearing his trademark suspenders, eager to show something cool, always. I would like to use the following lyrics of the Flatliners to express my feelings at this moment. The sun shows no mercy this afternoon. I'm staring water-eyed as crowd in the Darden Auditorium comes to mourn and celebrate. A heart once close has stopped beating, but its memory lives forever. And your blurry eyes will make your experience here today remembered. You will always be remembered. You will be celebrated. You will never be forgotten. These tears will remember. I feel I'm awake today with this memory that was once misplaced. And I never thought I would be here to see this overpowering sadness, our eyes wide, receptive, with a family without a face learns that hands around them will help give directions. You will not be forgotten, and we will sing. You are not lost, Jeff. You are watching over us. You will never be forgotten. You will always be remembered. You will be celebrated. Rest in peace, Jeff. Our heart has always a place for you. I would like to make two brief announcements at the very end of my speech. In order to recognize Jeff's contribution to hospitality education and continue his long-lasting impact on our students' body here, UCF Rosen College and Fantasy World will be working together to establish the memorial scholarship under Jeff's name, and will be open to donation. I know he and his family will appreciate if you can contribute to this scholarship. Detailed information will be provided later on. One of Jeff's inspirations at Rosen College is to become a tenured professor. I don't know, for the folks who are sitting here not very familiar with university system, how important that is. Tenured professor means status. Tenured professor means security with your job. If you are tenured, you can hold your professorship with the university basically forever. That is how important it is, and that is why he has his great inspiration here at Rosen College. And he had been working so hard to achieve this goal. From time to time, all the conversations I had with him or with his colleagues, that was the recurring topic. I need to get down to my research. I need to get my tenure. So with the support of university and college leadership, I am pleased to award the Certificate of Recognition for his inspirational journey towards his tenure to Jeff's sister, Donna. I know he would be very appreciative of this recognition and proud of his achievement, and will probably place this certificate of recognition at a significant place at his new home out there. Congratulations, Jeff, and we are all so proud of you. Thank you all for coming, and can I invite Donna to the stage to receive the certificate, please. The certificate says, this certificate for recognition presented to Dr. Jeffrey Weinland for his inspirational professional journey towards tenure, August 26, 2022, from Rosen College of Hospitality Management, University of Central Florida. Thank you. So I want everybody to see this. Thank you all.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. This would have meant so much to Jeff. I'm going to do my best to hold it together, to be able to speak and tell you a little bit about him. Jeffrey Thomas Weinland was born in New York City on August 26, 1964, to Margaret and Paul Weinland. His first home was in Staten Island, New York, where he lived with my parents, our maternal grandparents, John and Elizabeth Gentile, and our maternal uncle, Jack. 4 years later, Jeff's parents told him he was going to be a big brother. Our mom showed him a magazine with full-page ad showing a bunch of babies. And he told them to pick one. That would be his little brother or sister. He happily chose one from that magazine. Every year on my birthday, he'd laugh and he'd tell me, "You are not the one I chose." It was a fact he loved to bring up every year at every family meeting that he could. You all know Jeff. That was his sense of humor. That was the kind of relationship we had, and it was a lot of fun. Our family moved from Staten Island to the Pocono Mountains in Pennsylvania in 1969 after our dad was transferred there. We moved into our dad's childhood home in a small town called Weinland. Jeff loved the Poconos. He loved the mountains, he loved the winter, he loved the annual Green Dreer Fair. Our mother had a children's clothing store while we were there. He loved working with her in that store. We had a lot of family in the area, and we were blessed with being able to have a lot of family get-togethers. And we had a great group of cousins that we're still very close with to this day. I'm sure a few of them are watching. Hi, everybody. So Jeff loved the Poconos. And I'm sure many of you had to sit through the stories of the Poconos probably longer than you cared to. But very soon after that, another transfer in the fall of 1971 brought us to New Jersey, where Jeff and I went through school and met a lot of friends we now call family. I'm very grateful because many of them are here with us today. Jeff graduated from Manalapan High School in 1982. He started taking college courses, but actually his heart wasn't initially into it. Hospitality wasn't a major you could find in New Jersey in that time. So not too long after, Jeff started night auditing at hotels, and he quickly leveraged that into moving to Orlando. It was a job he loved, and he excelled at. Why Orlando? Well, in the fall of 1971, we went and took our first trip to Walt Disney World as a family. It was very close to opening day. Jeff says it was opening day. I was 3. It could have been opening day. I don't know. But that visit started a yearly tradition of visiting Walt Disney World. And it quickly became that we went every Christmas to Walt Disney World. And that really started in Jeff his love of this area and his love of the hospitality industry. So after Jeff moved down here, this is the time in our lives when Florida was where his heart was. Jeff, my parents and I, we've always had a close relationship, and we were always there for each other. But Jeff built a family here, and with his Florida family was where he felt home. During this time, Jeff started working. Jeff worked with the Red Cross. You know, this would probably be a lot easier if I could see it. During this time, Jeff was working with the Red Cross, and I don't know too much about what he did when he was there, so I'm going to let Elaine speak to that. But a prevailing theme through his life was that he loved helping people. He met wonderful people through the organization. Most importantly, he met Elaine, and I'll let you tell their story herself. During this time, Jeff started working with vacation villas at Fantasy World Timeshare. The only thing that could have kept Jeff away from moving back to the Poconos was Fantasy World. I keep saying the same thing because Jeff was very consistent throughout his life. Jeff loved Fantasy World. He loved everyone who worked there. He loved the property, he loved the guests. When Jeff found something he loved, he embraced it in a huge bear hug. Also during this time is when educationally things clicked for Jeff. He wanted to share his passion for hospitality, for entrepreneurship, so he worked hard at his studies and got his doctorate. He was very proud to be Dr. Jeff. I remember when he graduated and he told me I could call him Dr. Jeff. I told him, not happening, but maybe that kid from the magazine would do it. We laughed. To me, he was always Jiffy. To him, I was always Kiddo. Sorry. But he loved being Dr. Jeff. As I look around at all of you, I know he was proud of being part of all of your lives. He loved UCF. He loved the Rosen School. His tenure would have meant so much to him. He was working really hard for it. Every person he met along the way was immediately a friend. And if you lasted for a while, you were family. So I really thank all of you for coming. You are family. There's one last thing I'd like to say. Today is Jeff's birthday. Happy birthday, Dr. Jeff. Our next speaker is Elaine. Thank you all so much.
For those of you that may have read romantic novels, you probably found that they have a typical format. Boy meets girl, but it is an antagonistic or contentious meeting. That is exactly how my relationship with Jeff began. He was a Pima, pain in my... I was teaching an American Red Cross disaster public affairs class. I can still see him sitting at the front row table to my right. He was wearing a white short-sleeved dress shirt because I later found out that he had come directly from class after a night of working at a hotel for his company, Night Auditors of America. He was constantly stopping me to ask questions of clarification for what I had just said. This was my first introduction of how he took every word you said literally. He never inferred anything. As many of you know, when Jeff got involved in something, he immersed himself in it. In a short period of time, after he had completed all the basic disaster coursework, he stepped up and took a leadership position on the disaster committee. He began to ask me to go out for coffee at IHOP after the meetings every month. Over the course of these coffees, our relationship began to grow. During these evenings, he told me that the values most important to him were God, family, which includes all of you, and country in that order. Over the years, we had a difference of opinion as to whether those were our first dates. That was his belief. I considered our first date to be when he asked me to go to dinner at Whispering Canyon at Wilderness Lodge. That was the night that I discovered the depth of his love for Disney World and how that love affair began. As we began dating, he exhibited another one of his traits. He did everything to excess. He sent me a dozen roses every week. After about 3 months, I had to ask him to stop sending them to me because I had quite a collection of vases. I began to discover that he was a brilliant man, a true entrepreneur. He had a creative mind and was always thinking of ways to make money. When he first moved to Florida, he drove a taxi for income while he built Night Auditors of America with his mother. When he dropped his passengers off, he would give them a quarter in his business card, and he told them to call him when they were ready to go back to the airport. He placed those wooden beaded car seat covers on the seats of his taxi. He would then ask his passengers if they liked them. If they said yes, he sold it to them. He did. In 2000, after the presidential election, he created this little bottle that he called Florida Chad. He put a label on it that said, "Look closely. This bottle contains only one, but the leader of the free world was chosen by fewer than would fit in this little bottle." He sold them to souvenir shops around the state of Florida and made a $40,000 profit. He loved musicals and history, and so for Christmas one year, I bought tickets for Hamilton because I thought the combination of music and history would appeal to him. He's the only person I ever met who didn't like or enjoy the musical. He simply didn't like rap music. Early in our relationship, I asked him to promise that he would give me 30 years. That was my subtle way of telling him he would have to take better care of himself by eating better, exercising more. He wanted to get married, but I didn't, because early on I realized that our living and money styles were polar opposites. Had we lived together, we wouldn't have lasted a year. However, we enjoyed camping at Fort Wilderness and did it for several years until 9/11 happened. It devastated his night auditing business, and he realized that he had to do something different to make a living. So he went back to school and earned his bachelor's degree, master's degree, and doctorate. Our camping trips came to an end during that period. When he was finally offered full-time employment at the Rosen College of Hospitality Management, he was asked to divest himself of all the side businesses that he had. The dean at the time was concerned that they would take away his time for doing teaching and research at the university. Little did they know that at that time that he would eventually get involved with a resort in Kissimmee called Fantasy World. I mentioned to Dr. Wong the day we cleaned out his office that they would have been better off letting him keep those other businesses. While we were no longer going camping, thanks to Rosen College, we discovered that we enjoyed doing road trips together. Jeff was asked to do a semester-long consultation with Silver Dollar City in Branson, Missouri. I helped him move up there, and then I helped him move back home when the semester was over. When the 2-month quarantine was lifted at the beginning of COVID, Jeff told me he was going to drive to Pennsylvania to pick up a pinball machine. I asked if I could go with him. He was so surprised and happy that I wanted to go with him. We did 2 more road trips. Both were 18-hour drives straight through trips home, something I thought I would never do in my lifetime. The last trip we did was to pick up Bear, the St. Bernard dog that has become the resort dog at Fantasy World. The day we picked up Bear, I had to laugh when we stopped for lunch and I walked off to clean the dishes while Jeff tried to get the harness on Bear. This puppy, a small ball of fur, got away from him. I could hear the panic in Jeff's voice as he yelled to me to come help him out. We both hated conflict, and in all our years together, we only had one fight, but it was more like a Cold War. It was early in the relationship when we were driving home from Atlanta. We ended up driving in silence for 8 hours. We had our disagreements, but suffered in silence until things blew over. Many of you here today benefited from his generosity, not necessarily from a monetary standpoint, but he would do just about anything for anyone at any time, sometimes to his own detriment. Early in our relationship, I thanked him for something he had done for me. and he told me his 27-word philosophy. It's the things you do that you don't have to that makes all the difference in the world when it's too late to do anything about it. I only got 25 years with him.
Jeff Weinland was literally the most literal person I ever met in my entire life. We'd walk into a restaurant together, and the hostess would ask how we were. Jeff would answer, hungry. If a waitress asked him how he liked his burger prepared, he would say, preferably by the cook in the kitchen over there. Jeff would literally answer the question you asked, not the question you think you asked. If he said something to you, he literally meant exactly what he said. We had to part ways with the company we had been doing business with. It was quite nasty. They were horrible. The case settled in mediation. The settlement came with a confidentiality clause. When people asked Jeff about his experience with his company, he'd smile and say, can't complain. That is literally what he meant. He could not complain. My name is Alex Kostopoulos. Jeff Weinland was my best friend. To others, he was brilliant, innovative, knowledgeable, curious, entrepreneurial, a formidable negotiator, a visionary. To me, he was also part boss, part teacher, part mentor, part big brother, but always, always, always 100% my friend. I'm guessing everybody in this room knows how awesome it is to have Jeff Weinland as your friend. He loved making people happy. I think that's why he was so drawn to the hospitality industry. Jeff taught me the platinum rule. We all know the golden rule, right? Treat others the way you want to be treated. Jeff explained that the platinum rule was to treat others the way they want to be treated. And that's how he lived his life. Making others happy made him happy. When he found the perfect gift for somebody, especially if it was an unexpected surprise, he turned into a kid, his big blue eyes sparkling with glee, just overwhelmed with excitement at the happiness he was going to give somebody else. I remember when one of Jeff's dear friends, she's here, got a cute little puppy. Now, this is a lovely, lovely, beautiful woman, but hates every single photograph of her ever taken. We might know somebody like that. Jeff found an artist online who could create beautiful, original art. He commissioned a giant illustration on canvas of this dear friend with her beloved puppy. That illustration is now one of her most prized possessions. As much as she loves it, I think Jeff loved giving it to her even more. Jeff made his friends feel cared for and special. When somebody passes, we Greeks say, may his memory be eternal. On one level, that means that as long as our memories of Jeff live on in our hearts, he's still with us. I know how much he touched my life, and he touched many, many others' lives in the same way. The entrepreneurs he mentored, the co-workers he collaborated with, the employees he trained, the students he taught. Jeff's memory will live on in my heart until I die. But it won't end there. My daughter is 2 years old. She's the one you've been hearing saying, Daddy, Daddy, while other people were talking, so I apologize. She's back there in the doorway right now. She's too young to have a distinct memory of ever meeting Uncle Jeff. However, the lessons I learned from Jeff, the ones that live in my heart, will be planted and nurtured in her heart too as she grows up. Even though she may not remember Uncle Jeff herself, a part of him will live on in her. Jeff once talked to me about his desire to leave a legacy behind. He saw Fantasy World Resort as that legacy. That doesn't just mean a beautiful resort. He built a place that makes people happy, a place where families make the memories of a lifetime. When we added amenities or when we did things at the resort, Jeff would always say he wanted something for the grandparents, something for the parents, and something for the kids. He wanted families to go there, and he wanted to give each and every one of those families the gift of wonderful memories. That's Jeff's legacy. Like my 2-year-old, those families on vacation may not recall ever meeting Jeff, or they might have vacationed long after he passed. But what he built is helping create priceless memories that will live in the hearts of others. His legacy is still touching people's hearts today and will continue to do so long into the future. A part of Jeff lives on in every student he taught, every employee he mentored, every family he gave memories to, every friend he brought happiness to, and all the people that will pass those gifts along to the next generation and the generation after that. I salute you, my best friend, Jeff Weinland. May your memory be eternal. Thank you. I'll now introduce you to Dennis Levy, Jeff's protege. Dennis?
Thank you all for coming today. Wasn't really sure how I should dress this morning, so I decided to split the difference. I didn't know who I was representing today, so I'm wearing my Fantasy World polo shirt and I'm wearing my Rosen College board member name tag because these two places that were so pivotal in Jeff's life are also so intertwined into mine. I was reminded when I saw Bill that every student at Rosen learns that the difference between a theme park and an amusement park is simple. A theme park, they tell stories. It's going to tell a story. It's the things you do that you do not have to do that make all the difference because you do not have to do them. Those 27 words defined a life. They were the namesake of a company, his company, in my company, and the most astute pleasure to have him in it for the last 15 years. Today's August 26th, what would have been his 58th birthday. This past Saturday was August 20th, and exactly 15 years prior to that day, August 20th, 2007, was the day that I met Jeff. It was my first day as an incoming freshman here at the Rosen College. And I remember my first class of the day was English 1100, and it left me seriously wondering what my college experience was going to be like. I mean, this professor from main campus, he was old and he was curmudgeonly, and he clearly resented having to drive all the way down here to teach this one single section. So I walked out of that room not really too sure of myself. But then at 11 o'clock that morning, I had HFT 1101 with Jay Weinland. And I don't really remember much about what he talked about that first day, save the comprehensive review of the final exam questions. But I remember walking out of that room saying, I got this. I'm going to do just fine. I'm going to enjoy my college experience if I have more teachers like this. It was probably by the third or fourth week of that semester that Jeff told his famous hanging Chad story, one that most of you have probably heard before today if you knew him well. That's the moment that I was hooked. I saw this amazing opportunist, this brilliant businessman that could literally turn trash into a $40,000 project, literally trash. I would go on to take, and I could see that he was more than willing to share his successes and his failures and how he became the brilliant businessman that he was. I would go on to take many more classes with Jeff throughout my Rosen undergraduate career. Managerial accounting, hospitality industry finance, communications, human resources. I think I'm probably missing one or two. Every single one of them was a total pleasure. He rarely used a textbook. His lectures weren't really lectures. They were discussions about work and about school and about life, its trials and its tribulations. My relationship with Jeff outside of the college began in the fall of 2008 when I did my internship too at a company that he founded in 1998, a company called Night Auditors of America. One day, the semester before that, I was hanging out in his office during his office hours in between my classes, and I mentioned to him that I wanted to get some lodging experience because all of my experience to that point had been in food and beverage and events. And his response to that was, "So when are you starting at Night Auditors of America? I've only been waiting." Those next couple of months were absolutely glorious. He taught me absolutely everything that there was to know about hotel night audit and accounting, much more than I ever learned in any of my accounting classes at Rosen. And moreover than that, he taught me how to really do business, how to talk confidently to a manager or an owner about their operation, about what their best practices were, about what their deficiencies were. He taught me how to talk that talk, and that skill has stayed with me all of these years. I will remember those couple of months doing that internship at Night Auditors of America for the rest of my life. I will remember that. Fast forward a couple of years. I graduated from Rosen in the fall of 2010. Shortly prior to that, I got involved with a startup company who placed an ad on the Rosen listserv for an intern. The company was based in Winter Park. It had 8 accounts doing cafeteria management at private Christian schools. By the time I exited that company as a partner, the company was serving 100,000 meals a week in over 200 schools in 17 states. And that company is still doing great today with nearly 1,000 employees. It was the absolute ride of my life. But all good things must come to an end. I grew distant with my business partner. We had irreconcilable differences. And who was there to counsel me through this period? Who was the only one in my life who would understand what I was going through? Jeff was. He encouraged me to take the bold steps that I needed to take, to go out on my own, to leave, and to do my own thing. My operating agreements and my non-compete with my business partner seemed like insurmountable legal hurdles. But Jeff, the ever-brilliant strategist, helped me flesh out the most clever way of doing business in that space, not violating my agreements, by operation of federal law, no less. He was so brilliant at that. Walking right up to a legal or ethical line, standing on it, dancing on it gleefully, saying, "Nana, nana, poo, poo, I got you." But he would never step over. He was just absolutely brilliant at that. This is when I consider Jeff to have become my mentor. With his encouragement, I took the leap of faith and I became an entrepreneur. Things did not go to plan, as they often don't, but that's okay. 2 years and 2 lawsuits later, I was finally able to move past it. I wouldn't have made it through those 2 years of my life if it hadn't been for Jeff. He made it his mission to get me back on my feet professionally and to show me that my career hadn't come to an end as I believed that it had. During those 2 years, he encouraged me to get my real estate license, and Jeff became my broker. Side story. He helped me negotiate deals on a few dozen houses that I flipped over the course of a couple of years, including one new construction house that couldn't be sold by the developer because it backed up to a set of train tracks. It was just an undesirable house. Well, what do you know? Jeff had the foresight to take out a $500 ad in a national train buff magazine. And he got the developer to agree to build a ledge around the living room to hold model trains when you could see the train tracks out the back door of the living room. Well, wouldn't you know, the house sold for double the asking price. But not before Jeff hadn't have struck a deal with the developer to give us 50% of whatever the house sold for above the asking price. Never have I seen someone so dumbfounded in their entire life when we brought them that offer, and never have I seen a cooperating broker so happy to stroke that big check. It was truly amazing. Jeff, ever the brilliant opportunist. Moving on, he encouraged me to get my private investigator's license, and he became my sponsor. You know, I didn't realize it at the time, but these things that he was doing, or rather these things that he was encouraging me to do, were all about rekindling the entrepreneurial spirit and the confidence that I had lost from my first major business deal gone awry. He was determined not to let that first bad experience cause me to lose myself and lose my confidence to be my own businessman, or to waste my skills working for somebody else, other than maybe him, as time would tell. There was a day that came when he pulled out all the stops. He had recently gotten his PhD, and he needed to divorce himself of his for-profit businesses in order to secure a spot on the Rosen faculty, and make his dream, his true dream of becoming a tenured professor, a reality. He called me up one day out of the clear blue sky, and he asked me quite plainly, "So, would you like to buy Night Auditors of America from me?" My initial answer was a resounding, hell no. He asked why, and I said, "You have clients that have been with you for 20 plus years. This business is built on you, your relationship with them, your knowledge. I can't compete with that. You have, you want to turn this business over to someone who was at that time half your age. I'm throwing away my money. Why am I even going to consider this?" And he said, "You know what? I'll tell you what. You're right. If you lose either of the two contracts that I'm going to sell to you, you don't owe me anything. Anything that you haven't paid to me already, you don't owe me." And he made me, quite simply, an offer that I couldn't refuse. And so I had nothing to lose, and I agreed to the deal. And I paid Jeff a few $100,000 for the two existing contracts. And 9 years later, I still have both those contracts and a few more. It was the best thing I ever did for myself. What I got out of that deal was so much more than money. It was my confidence. Jeff was a fan of Austin Powers like me. He loved Michael Myers. I got my mojo back, baby. And in that moment, I had become his colleague. He was no longer my teacher, but he was my colleague. My business relationship with Jeff over the years was best characterized by one of favors, of total and complete blind faith in each other. Anytime either one of us ever started a conversation with, "Hey, I need a favor," you knew that it was a serious ask, no matter how small it might be. And there's two of those that just stick out in my mind over the years that I want to tell you guys about. There's a woman in the audience named Barbara. Barbara is the barber that cut Jeff's hair for almost 30 years, and I met her for the first time in person today. One day, Jeff calls me up and he says, "Hey, I need a favor." He said, "The lady who cuts my hair, her name is Barbara, and she's the nicest lady you'll ever meet. And I help her with her website and with the business side of her business, because I don't know anything about cutting hair, but I do know something about running a business." He said the other day, for the first time, she got a 1-star review on Google when she had nothing but 5-star reviews previously. He's like, "I Googled the guy's name, and it keeps coming up that he's in your LinkedIn circle." He's like, "Can you call him and see what's up with this 1-star review?" Well, I knew who the guy was, and I just so happened to be negotiating a large contract for him to do some work for another business that I did business with. And needless to say, the 1-star review was removed later that day. Another day, my phone rang, and it was Jeff, and he said, "I need a big favor." Jeff wouldn't use that word big lightly. He said, "I need $10,000 from Night Auditors of America." And being that our relationship was one of favors, I said, "Okay, no problem. You need a check or you need a bag of cash? What do you need?" And he said, "A check will do." I said, "Okay, I'll have it for you tomorrow." He's like, "Make sure you make it out to the Rosen College of Hospitality Management." And, that's how I became the sponsor of the Rosen Entrepreneurship Competition for the next 3 years. That competition and the idea of it was what he cherished the most about teaching, an opportunity to inspire students to be successful and achieve their dreams through their own hard work and application of what they had learned at school. Jeff's ultimate aim was to bridge that gap between the classroom and the real world, and the discipline of entrepreneurship was the vehicle. I'd like to think I donated that money because it was a noble cause, or because I wanted to support the college, or maybe even because it was good exposure for my company, but all those would be lies. The honest truth is that I did it because Jeff asked me to. I loved him, and I was grateful for him and everything that he had done for me, and it was important to him, so it was important to me. During COVID, and as Jeff's health started to decline, we got closer, and that's something that it feels weird to say that I'm glad about. I'm glad that I had the opportunity to get to know him even better before he died. He started letting me come over to the house more often. He would ask me for help with simple things that he had been having trouble with. I'm really glad that I got to travel with him on his last big vacation to Alaska, and I'm comforted to know that he died doing what he loved best, which was vacationing at a timeshare resort in the Poconos. On that cruise, we got to hang out together. We got to do like real friend stuff together, not business stuff. I mean, we hung out in the spa. We got mani-pedis together. We hung out in the hot tub almost nightly with Rich's wife and daughter. It was absolutely great. And not just then, but in the year prior to that, Jeff started planting the seeds of what would become hopefully his last great business move. And in typical Jeff fashion, that needs to remain a secret at this time. That kind of brings us to today and where I stand before you right now. And this spot holds a lot of meaning for me because I can't tell you how many times I've spoken to students in this exact spot. Jeff always brought me into his classes to talk about entrepreneurship. And he wanted me to talk about my successes, but he also wanted me to talk about my failures, because we all learn from our mistakes. Over time, I developed a presentation, one that I've given to many times in this spot to Rosen students. I'm sure many of the faculty in the room here have heard me give the presentation called How to Run Your Life. And I remember the first time that I gave the presentation in its most current form, and after I was done, Jeff walked up and he said, "Hey, can you send me the PowerPoint for that? I really liked it. I want to use it in my classes that you don't get to speak in." And, in that moment, I knew I had achieved a measure of success. The fact that this man, this brilliant man that I held in the highest of regards, thought so highly of something that I had developed that he wanted to use it in his teaching. I don't know how or why that changed how I felt towards him, but it did. In the most positive of ways, too. That mutual respect, the two-way street, that was probably the moment when I realized just how much my relationship with him meant, at least to me. I suppose I've shared these things with you, this story today, these many ways in which Jeff touched my life, because, I want you to know that, it wasn't just you. I know that when I look out on everybody in this audience, many of you whom I have the pleasure to know personally, I know that he had an impact on your life, because that's the kind of person that he was. He would neglect himself and his own problems to help you with yours. I aspire to be brilliant like him, and I aspire to be kind and loving like him all the same. I'd like to end with something funny. In the spring of 2009, I took human resources with Jeff. I had an A in the class, so the extra credit assignment wasn't really going to do me much good. But being that the extra credit was due on April Fool's Day, Wednesday, April 1st of that year, I just couldn't resist trying to make Jeff laugh. And so the assignment was to write a company-style memo with company policies that needed to change and why they needed to change. And so I decided I was going to make some updates to a fictional employee handbook of the 27 Words Company. And I wrote the policies as if Jeff would in his own ideas, no holds barred. As many of you in this room know, the more intelligent one gets, the harder it is to sometimes understand the most simple and normal of human behaviors. And Jeff was no exception to that rule. He got a kick out of what I wrote, and it made him laugh, but he didn't like it. It wasn't good enough for him, so he promptly rewrote it and gave it back to me. And I've saved it all these years, and it still makes me laugh, and so I hope that it makes you laugh too. Subject, dress code, employee handbook, importance, high, effective immediately. 1, dress code. It is advised that you come to work dressed according to your salary. If we see you wearing $350 Prada sneakers and carrying a $600 Gucci bag, we assume that you are doing well financially and therefore you do not need a raise. If you dress poorly, you need to learn to manage your money better so that you may buy nicer clothes and therefore do not need a raise. If you dress in between, you are right where you need to be and therefore do not need a raise. Number 2, sick days. We will no longer accept a doctor's statement as proof of sickness. If you are able to go to the doctor, then you are able to come to work. Number 3, surgery. Operations are now banned. As long as you are an employee here, you need all of your organs. You should not consider having anything removed. We hired you intact. To have something removed constitutes a breach of employment. Number 4, personal days. Each employee will receive 104 personal days a year. They are called Saturday and Sunday. Number 5, vacation days. All employees will take their vacation at the same time of year. The vacation days are as follows: January 1st, July 4th, and December 25th. Bereavement leave. This is no excuse for missing work. There is nothing you can do for dead friends, relatives, or coworkers. Every effort should be made to have non-employees attend to the arrangements. In rare cases where employees' involvement is necessary, the funeral should be scheduled in the late afternoon. We will be glad to allow you to work through your lunch break and subsequently leave 1 hour early, provided your share of the work is done. Number 6, absence due to your own death. We will accept this as an excuse. However, we require 2 weeks' notice because it is your job to train your replacement. Number 6, restroom use. Entirely too much time is being spent in the restroom. In the future, we will follow the practice of going in alphabetical order. For instance, all employees whose names begins with A will go from A to A20. All employees whose names begin with B will go from A20 to A40, and so on. If you are unable to go at your allotted time, it will be necessary to wait until the next day when your turn comes again. In extreme emergencies, employees may swap their time with a coworker. However, both employees' supervisors must sign off on this. In addition, there is now a strict 3-minute time limit in the stalls. At the end of 3 minutes, an alarm will sound, the toilet paper will retract, and the stall door will open, and a picture will be taken. After your second offense, your picture will be posted on the company bulletin board under the chronic offenders category. Lunch break. Skinny people get 30 minutes for lunch as they need to eat more so that they can look healthy. Normal-sized people get 15 minutes for lunch so that they get a balanced meal to maintain their average figure. Fat people gets 5 minutes for lunch because that's all the time that you need to drink a Slim Fast shake and take a diet pill. Thank you for your loyalty to our company. We are here to provide a positive employment experience. Therefore, all questions, comments, concerns, complaints, frustrations, irritations, aggravations, insulations, allegations, accusations, contemplations, consternation, and input should be directed elsewhere. Thank you, the management. In closing, one more time, it's the things you do that you do not have to do that make all the difference because you do not have to do them. I love you, Jeff, and I will miss you. You gave me all the tools, you gave me most of the people, and I hope I make you proud. Thank you. At this time, I will invite anybody who wishes to speak up to the microphone to say a few words.
I had this plan. I was going to actually ride Bear up to the microphone there, but we couldn't get enough training done, so I'll step up. For those who don't know me, my name is Scott Smith, and I have connections here at the Rosen, several, and I also worked with Jeff on Fantasy World, and we also did research together, but more importantly, Jeff was my friend, and he was my good friend, and he was also a teacher. And actually, hi Zoe. Jeff would have laughed hysterically with Zoe there running around there. So please don't take her out. I want her to sing along with me and cheer and all that. So, and this is what happens when you go. What am I, 5th? They used all my good stories. The hanging chads, the 27 words, and so I'm probably going to take a little bit of a different approach here and talk about Jeff as a teacher. And we all know Jeff was a great classroom teacher, but more importantly, Jeff was a life teacher. And nobody benefited more from that than me, which is unusual because I'm probably outside the average student age here. But Jeff was always teaching me. And I want to share with you something special that happened. And this is amazing. And you can call it fate. You can call it karma. You can call it the wisdom of God. Jeff and I had breakfast the Sunday before he passed away. He was driving up to Pennsylvania, and he called me and said, I'm going to be in South Carolina. Let's go and have breakfast. And, of course, I absolutely jumped at the chance. Jeff and I had a wonderful relationship in that we did research together, we taught together, we shared, slides and syllabi and all that. But more importantly, Jeff was a towering intellect. And Jeff and I would quite frequently have deep, deep conversations about philosophy, about the meaning of life, about anything that just absolutely drove my wife crazy because she's like, oh, you doctors and you PhDs are so, up in the clouds, and Jeff and I were always that. And of course, Dennis is smiling because he remember our dinner at Sbarro this summer when we started talking about here we are in the middle of Fun Spot in Sbarro, and we're talking about the meaning of life and whether we're all real or if we're living in a computer simulation. And I think at one point Dennis's eyes just kind of rolled. But those are the kind of conversations Jeff and I would love to have. And it just so happened that Sunday breakfast was one of those times. And again, I look back now, and this almost sounds like it was written in Hollywood about Jeff and I sitting down and having a long conversation. And my wife was there, so she can swear the story is true. But two important things happened that I think are worth noting here. And the first one, and I swear this is not made up, this is the honest to God's truth. Jeff was wearing his Fantasy World shirt. And we were at the Cracker Barrel, because Jeff loved Cracker Barrel. I love Cracker Barrel. We all love Cracker Barrel. And the waitress comes up, and she was just a middle-aged waitress, very nice. And she looked at Jeff's shirt, and she saw Fantasy World, and she got all excited. And it's a true story, I swear to God. She says, my family and I just stayed there. And she said, we had the best time ever. And she went on about how her family, did all the things. And then she said something that really kind of hit home. She says, we're not rich people. And when we go down to Orlando, we can afford maybe to do one park. But at Fantasy World, there was so much to do. We made so many memories. And she said, the kids really didn't want to go to the park. They just wanted to be in the lazy river the whole time or on the slides. And so Jeff lit up. He absolutely was smiling from ear to ear about how this woman talked about what an amazing time her family had. And so I just think that, again, things happen for a reason. And for some reason, we got that waitress on that morning, and Jeff was wearing his shirt, and he was like a kid in a candy store. He was the Jeff of just smiling. And then he started to tell this waitress, well, you got to come back because here's what we're going to do. And he started going down the list of projects and how we were going to make Fantasy World better. And he said, you know what? Here's my card. When you come down again, I want you to call me, and we're going to get you set up because we want to make sure that you really enjoy Fantasy World. And so I just think, again, it was a tremendous kindness that he showed towards this person, and he reveled in that. And that's the type of person Jeff is. So that's the first thing that happened. The second thing that happened is not as light, and it was kind of a deeper subject. And I debated whether or not if I should tell this story or not. And I thought about it, and I said, what would Jeff want me to do? And of course, we all know the answer. Jeff would want me to share this story, absolutely, because Jeff was a teacher, and he wanted people, to learn from both good and bad. And so Jeff told me of a situation of a person had just come to him and had asked him for a favor. And I knew this person, and the reason I knew this person is because a couple of years ago, this person had done a wrong to Jeff. This person had literally thrown him under the bus, and misused him, in my opinion. And I got mad, and I said, Jeff, why in the world would you even consider helping this person out? And he looked at me and he said, it's not that big a deal. And I said, well, this person did this. He said, I got over it the next day. He said that honestly, it doesn't mean anything. I was more offended, and it hadn't happened to me, than Jeff was. And he looked at me and he said, in all seriousness, and I'll never forget this, he said, I let it go. Here we are, he loved Disney. He said, let it go. And then we started singing Let It Go, because he loved Disney. And it was kind of funny watching two, older men sitting in a Cracker Barrel at 8 o'clock in the morning singing Let It Go together. But it's a great memory I'm going to carry with me the rest of my life. But then he said, and then he kind of gave me a little bit of a lecture now, and I realize it looking back. He said, life's too short to carry around grudges. Life's too short to just not move on from it. And he was going to do this favor for this person, and right then and there I knew that that Jeff, honestly, that Sunday morning, he held no grudges. He loved everybody, and even this person who had done him a tremendous wrong, he honestly had forgiven them. And if that person is in this audience right now, and I don't know if they are or not, you need to forgive yourself and anybody who may have mistreated Jeff or not, treated him properly. Don't let it go, okay? Because I know Jeff. If Jeff has forgiven you, he's forgiven everyone, and I just think that that's amazing. And it had an effect on me that Sunday morning. But boy, I tell you what, when I learned he passed away, it struck me like a thunderbolt that, this is Jeff was teaching me, and I needed to hear this, and it's changed me profoundly. And there are people in my life that I feel, I've had a grudge against, and if Jeff can let it go, I can let it go. And so Jeff, being the great teacher that he is, I would invite all of you to learn from Jeff. And if there is someone in your life, family, friends, or colleagues that you have any animosity towards, or you think that they've done you wrong, please don't drag that around with you. Please make peace, forgive people. And I know that Jeff being gone makes our lives a little darker. And the way that we can counter that is to create more light amongst us. And I ask all of you to please use Jeff as an inspiration and truly reach out to people and forgive them. And also, and again, I know this is what happens when you go fifth. All these people take my message, but it is true. Jeff was the friend to the friendless. Jeff was the person that reached out and helped everyone, and he never, ever considered, well, I'm doing it for this person because later on I can ask them for a favor. Jeff did it truly out of the kindness of his own heart. He had the biggest heart of anybody I know, And if we all tried a little harder to live that way, then a lot of the problems we have in the world today we could solve instantly. So please look around you and look for people who need help, who need a little. It doesn't cost money. It can be encouragement or a kind word or something to just help them get by. And if we do that, then we'll always honor Jeff's memory and we'll always remember him. And I think that is the greatest thing that we can do to honor Jeff. And so I thank you, Jeff, as my teacher, for teaching me the value of many things, and I'll never forget you. And thank you. Anybody else would like to come up and say some words? Please, okay.
Hi, everybody. My name is Karen Brancato, and Jeff was a great friend of mine and a great friend of my family. Jeff and I met for the first night of our master's program on March 26, 2002. So this past spring, we celebrated 20 years of friendship and professional endeavors. As Scott mentioned, going towards the end, there's no sense in talking about Night Auditors of America, Wishing Well Realty, Ticket Scoop, Grocery Gallery, Mystery Shoppers. The list was endless. In 2009, Jeff convinced me to go back to school and get our doctorate degrees. Statistics will tell you that only 1 out of every 2 doctoral students will complete their program and earn their degrees. Well, Dr. Weinland and Dr. Brancato beat the odds, and we both finished. At one time or another, Jeff also employed each of my 3 children. So Alicia worked at the recreational department of Fantasy World Resort during her college years. Kristen currently works as the retail manager at the resort, and my son Christopher has installed many of the most recent technology advances in his house because Jeff's house was always a smart house. Each year on my birthday, Jeff would call me an old lady. You see, I was born the year before him, and our birthdays kind of overlapped. But August 26th was the equalizer. We would be the same age until my next birthday in November. Well, Jeff, you're never going to catch up to me now. Happy birthday, young man. I'm sure I'm sure Mr. Hobbs met you at the Rainbow Bridge. And Matilda, Tim, and your mom and dad greeted you at the pearly gates. You are missed beyond measure, my friend. I promised you that I would return this book at the end of the semester. But if you don't mind, I think I'm going to keep it.
Good afternoon, good evening. My name is Fevzi Okumus. I'm one of the faculty members here at Rosen College. I think about 15 years ago, I met Jeff Weinland through Professor Steve Lubruto. He's with us here today. Steve said, Fevzi, I want you to meet this guy. He's genius. I didn't understand what he meant. I think it's not working. When I started talking to Jeff. He knew about everything. Technology, real estate, hospitality, theme parks, everything. And then since Rosen College grew in terms of student numbers from 300 to 700, 1,000, then to 2,000 students, we couldn't hire many professors, so he was our #1 adjunct to teach everything. And not even once he said no to any course. Intro, technology, finance, leadership, any course we had, he said yes. And then he was wonderful. Later, he started his PhD. We had long discussions. He was so proud to finish his PhD. And he had several families. One was fantasy world. He talked all the time about fantasy world. And then next thing, he was very happy about his PhD. And then he said he wanted to get a tenure earning job. And eventually, after I stepped down from the chair position, we were able to hire him as a faculty and then tenure earning. And then every semester, beginning of every year, we would meet him and we would meet either at Rosen or outside and talk about his research. And #1 thing I told him, don't say yes to Yu Cheng, the dean. Okay? Don't say yes to Nan or Alan when they give you more courses to teach, more committees to serve, any chair positions on a committee. Say, no. You just say no. But he never listened to me. He always said yes, and he has done above and beyond. And then in terms of his research publications, we had a strategic plan. And sadly, surprisingly, he needed one single author article. And then the reviewer said yes, minor revision, just a couple of weeks ago. And unfortunately, he is not with us, but Jeff, your single author article is accepted for your information. He had a lot of networks, connections in the industry. I organized a workshop at Rosen College with Employ-U and CFHLA in June for high school students with disabilities. We had 30 students came to Rosen College, and our wonderful professors taught them in the morning, and we took them to different hotels and facilities. And I wanted to take the students to the convention center. I tried everything to reach convention center and arrange a visit, but nobody answered my emails, phone calls. What I did, I called Jeff. I said, I want to ask for a favor, Jeff. I want to arrange a visit. Do you know anyone at the convention center? He said, Dr. Okumus, give me an hour. And in 1 hour, I received an email confirming the visit to the convention center. Later, all my contacts came back, but I had already arranged the visit to the convention center because of Jeff. Jeff was also very emotional. Some of you may know his qualities. One day, our dear friend, she passed away 3 years ago, Matilda came back from chemo, and then she was telling her pain, her struggles with cancer and everything. And we were listening, and I looked at Jeff. He was crying like a little baby boy, and then we all three of us cried. And I realized how he had a big heart and how emotional he was. And then every week he would come and talk to Matilda, and then we met outside as well. And then another interesting thing happened. We created a scholarship for Matilda, and we were short a couple of thousand, I think $2,000 something, to reach $25,000. And Daniela, our former development director, she approached Jeff whether he could help, and then without my knowledge, Jeff paid it off, so we reached $25,000. So generous, big heart. And one other thing is, I had COVID very bad in October 2000. And there was no vaccines, no medication. And I was really in a bad shape, really. And one night I realized that I wasn't doing that good. I spent an hour or two as far as I could. I typed up through a website my will. Okay? And then I thought whom I could trust at Rosen College or in Orlando to handle this. And number one person was Jeff. So I emailed Jeff and called him and said, Jeff, I'm not doing well. I'm going to call 911. So I'm sending you this email with my draft will. Just you are a notary, you go over it and then sign it, and you have one or two witnesses, and then make sure it's in order. And he did that on the day, and he brought it to the hospital I was, and then I received my will at the hospital. Thanks God I survived, and I'm still grateful for his. So I could 100% trust him. He was one of the colleagues, friends at Rosen College. I could 100% trust. And it's not easy to find such good friends where you work and where you live. Now our task is, I think, create a scholarship in his name to honor, and I assume all Rosen College faculty, staff, students, alumni, as well as Fantasy World will greatly contribute so we can honor his legacy. And yes, he was a great teacher, entrepreneur, everything, but he was a wonderful human being with a big, big heart. And we miss you, Jeff. And I'm sad that we cannot meet during this first week of the semester to talk about research, or you consulting me about life and other things as well. We all miss you. And I remember him talking about Bear and his sister, Elaine, and everyone, and just big heart. Miss you, Jeff. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I did not know Jeff as well as many of you by the testimonies that I've heard today. But I will tell you, I learned from Jeff. I'm going to bring many of you back in time to a phrase called Bacchus Bash. Yes, Bacchus Bash was an annual street party of food and beverage with all proceeds going for hospitality education. And the Central Florida Hotel Lodging Association was the coordinator of that event on an annual basis. And yearly, we brought in $80,000 to $100,000 of scholarship money, predominantly going to the good students here at UCF Rosen. But what I learned from Jeff always called us to be the volunteer, to count all that money in a back room that was literally 10 by 10. Air conditioning half the time wasn't on. We had to bring in fans. He brought in his counter, and he did this every year, every Friday night, every year, for 25 plus years. He didn't ask for recognition. He never looked for me or others within the organization to glorify him. He did it because he knew that it was going for hospitality education. And I think the biggest thing I can always remember, we at CFHLA would have to start calling individuals in January, because we ran this event in March, April, to ask for them to support us. Jeff was one of those individuals that would call me. You know that's rare. And he would call me and say, what's the date? I'll be there with a team of 2 or 3, and we will do this for you. So although I didn't have the privilege of knowing Jeff as well, I just learned the importance he placed on education, and particularly hospitality education. He will be missed.
Hello everybody, and just thank you very much indeed for coming. This is the sort of beginning of the closure of this part. part of this evening, but we've got some refreshments and what have you outside. I'm just going to say a little thank you on behalf of the college, and then I'm going to pass to Alex, sort of Jeff's best friend, to close things for now. My favourite story, Jeff, he was a brilliant man. I can't repeat any of the words that have been said already. He was just a brilliant man and an incredibly generous man. But my favourite story with Jeff really also goes to his simplicity, but his simplicity in an incredible way. And it's COVID. COVID had just started. Obviously, the whole world was in chaos. Tourism and hospitality was just in a complete meltdown. But Jeff looked quite perky. I couldn't quite work out, well, why is Jeff perky? And the rest of the world's in a disaster. So Jeff says, what's going on? He says, oh, don't worry. He says, I've got a strategy. I'm like, oh, okay, so all the brains of the world are sort of struggling to deal with what's going on in COVID, but Jeff from Kissimmee seems to have a strategy. Okay, Jeff says, well, that's what I said. What's the strategy? He says, I'm going to get a dog. I just looked at him, I'm like, thank you, Bev, for just saying that. I just looked at him as if he was completely mad. But he said, no, trust me. It's all about dog-friendly policies. And I'm like, okay. Anyway, about 2-3 months later, he was looking very, very jolly. And I said, oh, how's business, Jeff? He goes, oh, do you know, best thing I ever done, getting better. And I just looked at him and I said, I think you told me you're getting a dog. And I said, Alan, that's the difference. He says, you're tourism, I'm hospitality. And he absolutely understood it. And to me, that was Jeff. He just knew better than anybody. Wonderful guy, wonderful human being. And thank you very much for coming. I'm going to pass to Alex, who's going to bring things to a close. After that, please go turn to the right outside, and we've got refreshments for everyone. Thank you very much for coming.
We actually have one final testimonial. I've been promised it will be short before we release everybody. I know if Jeff was here, he'd be saying it's already been too much talking over the food. But one more special testimonial, please, if you'll bear with us.
Hello, everyone. My name is Karen. I was a student of Dr. Jeff, or Weinland, if you just say Jeff.
We were former students of him this last semester, and so we're just very thankful that we had him, and we were able to, learn so much from him in those last few challenges. And I know she had a very close relationship with him. And one of my biggest takeaways is that I started my own business this last year because I took his advice literally, and I took that as a challenge. So we appreciate that, and we thank everybody for your time.
Here.
Okay, we're gonna try it.
Sorry about that, guys. I'm gonna just put this down. A couple months ago, I was distraught. I was graduating with my master's, not knowing where to go with my career, and a lot of my professors will know I confided in them. Dr. Weinland was one of the professors that I confided in, and he sent me a text message that I would really like to share with everyone, because it gave me the confidence to find a job in the industry that I love. I was telling him about my imposter syndrome and how I feel like I wasn't good enough for any job. And he told me, if you know about your imposter syndrome, then you know it's all in your head. Ignore it and it will all go away. In big cap letters, he said, you can be good at anything you choose. I'm not just saying that, I mean it. He changed my perspective. He gave me the confidence as a young professional to go out and find a job and really give it my all. So, thank you for everything you have done. I've known him for 6 years, since I was 18 years old, naive and just naive actually. And he's given me wisdom, friendship, confidence. So thank you.
I do want to make one clarification. Somebody introduced me as Jeff's best friend. Jeff was my best friend. I'm not sure I was his best friend. There are probably half a dozen people in this room right now who would say, you know what? Jeff's my best friend too. I spent more time on the phone with him and had more meals with him than anybody else in my life, including my family, but there's probably some other people who would say the same. And with that, I think we've had some really wonderful testaments to the man he was. Let's all go to the reception and share some fellowship and more memories of our beloved Jeff Weinland. Thank you all for coming, and we'll see you at what room is it in? Right down the hall. Thank you.
True story.